The Flash is out this week, featuring a rather unique actor.
This is Ezra Miller, the Mad Goose Wizard.
An actor who seems to get special treatment no matter what he does in life. He's been done for felony burglary charges after stealing from unoccupied homes. These poor millionaires, you can't expect them to buy their own stuff. Maybe that's why he picks random fights when he goes into a shop.
Whoa, bro.
Or why Ezra was under the delusion that they're Jesus, and that Ezra's marriage to a Native American spider goddess is supposed to bring about the apocalypse. Now yes, Ezra did accept a plea deal, and so managed to dodge jail time for the things that they'd done. But even in Hollywood, that's a little out there behaviour, especially in public. And so why, if many other actors get cancelled for less, why does Ezra get special treatment? Is it that the executives in Hollywood just really like him as a person? Because I tell you what, the critics certainly do. When during your review you start talking about Ezra's dark, sculpted eyebrows and insinuating lips, the actor is mesmerizing as a camera subject. I can't help but wonder if your opinions aren't exactly coming from your brain. I mean, you don't see too many reviews that read as if they're written by a raging hormonal teenager, but this is definitely one of them. Because something's going on when even Hollywood realise this is kind of a mistake. During the marketing, we had a very low-profile Ezra Miller and a sequel script which has already been written, but we're still not quite sure whether we're going to actually do it or not. We're definitely going to wait to see what the audience does on this one. I mean, normally that would just be good business advice, but I can't help thinking in this case there's a different reason for it. Because in the run-up to the movie, Ezra has done no press for the movie at all, and the only time he's going to make an appearance is a low-profile one. He's just going to sneak into the cinema through the back door, leave it, at the Los Angeles premiere on June 12th, where Ezra's only going to be doing photos rather than any interviews. We can't have him talk to anyone, because then they're going to ask him questions, and that's bad. There's just too many dangerous topics they could ask him questions on, and we know what he's like. He did call himself the Mad Goose Wizard.
It's me.
Now Ezra's excuse is, I want the conversation to be about the movie and not me. But isn't the entire point, if your actor's crime spree becomes bigger news than the multi-million-dollar movie they're making, then they probably shouldn't be making it in the first place. Because there has to be some kind of reason why Hollywood is simultaneously wanting to hide Ezra Miller from marketing, but at the same time thinks that Ezra Miller's history won't derail the movie. People will just forget that. And the reason why everyone will just forget all the problems is that Miller did such a superb job with playing the hero. I don't know, I just don't get it. I'm far more like Chris Gore's meme. Can we leave that guy over there? But Batman's why I'd want to see the movie. And if that's what Hollywood realised, I'd be like, fine, okay, I get it. I still don't know why he's making the movie. That's very weird. But at least we can all get on board with minimising the Flash in his own movie. That'd make a lot of sense. Or it would, if that's what people are on board with. It doesn't seem to be, though. The Flash review. Ezra Miller brings kinetic energy to a movie caught up by nostalgia DC fan service. Yeah, you know, all those fans that give you money. The last thing you should do for them is to service them by giving them what they want. What a horrific idea. I mean, look, we understand that Ezra Miller has had a string of controversies. That's the first time I've ever heard this called a controversy.
Whoa, bro.
But the troubled star turns out to be the film's chief asset, bringing humour, heart, and vulnerability. Not often seen on big screen superheroes.
The Mad Goose Wizard.
It's Miller that brings to this movie a funny, fully dimensional impression of Barry Allen, which is no mean feat given the movie's nostalgic fan service. This movie keeps trying to give the fans what they want, but luckily we're saved from that by Ezra Miller. Now this script is from the same writer as Birds of Prey, the same movie that had CBR making co-particles, but the script is at its best in the early scenes, which are all about Barry, enhanced by Miller's sharp comedic timing, before the Flash eventually bogs down in psychedelic CG world-bending that will have fans cheering, and they consider that the bad bit. Oh, the Ezra Miller bit at the start, that's the best part of the movie, but no one will appreciate that. But later on, when we get the other superheroes, the fans will absolutely adore it and be cheering in the wings, even though it's crap. It has the air of critics who feel almost at war with the customer. Critical reviews are meant to guide customers as to what to go and watch. This is good, give up your money. This is bad, don't bother. Whereas lots of reviews for this seem like the customer is the enemy. You just won't appreciate Ezra Miller as the best thing of this movie. But us enlightened folk over here, we know the truth. You'll just like it for that dross at the end. You know, when Batman turns up. Because the real problem with the movie is that the nostalgia often threatens the central plot line. They mean Barry Allen. I wonder why we'd want to sideline Barry, I just can't work it out. And it does showcase Supergirl as a tenacious opponent.
My goodness gracious, pants.
No, not that one. No, the strongest part of this movie is when it focuses on the personal. When it focuses on Miller's deftly layered performance. And that the early word on The Flash, calling it one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, was pure hyperbole. Which is a rather generous way to describe lying. Or maybe James is just very easily pleased. It's tough to tell at this point. Although it doesn't exactly instill confidence with regards to his future judgments about the DC universe. No, The Flash's reviews overall are, a bit bizarre. Sure, it got a 71% fresh, but again, you get very different numbers if you go between all critics at 71 and top critics at 52. Literally the difference between it being fresh and rotten. Interestingly, very similar numbers between that and The Little Mermaid, even down to their overall percentages. And in fact, closer to The Little Mermaid's release, it had exactly the same review scores overall at 6.4 and 6, with the all critics being far closer to the audience score overall. And when it comes to the really positive reviews, I can't help but wonder just how much of that is down to the Hollywood executive inside of them. Leave it. Because the Variety review is pure gold. Coming out with the title of Ezra Miller is on a bender of high anxiety in a movie that starts strong and grows overwrought, really sets up for we love Ezra Miller and hate everything else. That's why they love the playful first half, but they're really not a fan of the comic book stuff at the end. Yeah, those superhero movies always having a problem with the comic book stuff, I find. If only we could get the comic book out of our superhero movies, it'd be way better. Now, this author has a real problem with comic book movies, and that he can't identify with a superhero's powers. You see, it would involve you putting yourself into somebody else's shoes, and he can't do that. He's like, well, I don't have superpowers, so how am I supposed to know how that feels? Check out my last video if you want an explanation of why I think that happens. But this movie is different, you see, because it's got Ezra Miller in it, and so we know what he's going through. That's why this scene gives you such a jolt. I could never identify with a superhero before, but now one of them thinks that they're going to marry a spider goddess and bring about the apocalypse. Now I'm in. It's like I could see myself on the screen for once. And believe me when I tell you that with this one, we are just getting started. You see, Ezra Miller has never gone full Ezra Miller the way they do in The Flash. You should never go full Ezra Miller. We went full Ezra Miller for a couple of years and now we can't do press tours anymore. No, Ezra's strength lies in his sculpted dark eyebrows, his insinuating lips, and the actor's mesmerizing camera subject. He's like a young Jimmy Fallon crossed with a young Bob Dylan. And to be fair, I kinda see it. At least in some pictures. But no, it's the voice that gets you. Miller is an insouciant, don't worry, I googled it for you, showing a casual lack of concern. There are levels of pretentious that even I have to look up, and I specialize in that kind of thing. Irritated, irascible, we're really on a roll here, and irresistible. And the main thing I learned from this isn't just his love of The Flash, but he really likes his alliteration. I don't know why he thinks that Ezra Miller is particularly well described by words beginning in I. Whether it's just because of the way he's built, or because he's particularly self-obsessed, I'm not sure. But he's like Andy Cohen on a bender with high anxiety, and I have no idea who that is, nor care enough to bother looking it up. No, instead, we're about to move into full-on obsession. In fact, I think a great way of judging your girlfriend would be if she thinks of you like this. Just watching Barry order an elaborate peanut butter sandwich in the opening scene with his hungry jitters and nervous speed demon Alon is mesmerizing. If you can find someone who thinks you ordering a peanut butter sandwich is mesmerizing, you're set for life. She will ride with you to the end of the earth and not complain if she's impressed by a peanut butter sandwich. No one, with the possible exception of Deadpool, has elicited this antic disassociation from his own heroism. If Willow was a movie review, it'd be this review. It's got that glorious, egotistical confidence as it's driving headfirst into a wall. Because there's a lot going on in The Flash. And at first, it's a heady comic book caper of time warp heroism and identity. That's an interesting mix of terms. But Miller is putting a spin on the effrontery on every line. He's the perfect actor to play this corkscrew superhero. When he breaks into Wayne Manor, the film seems ripe for possibility. But the trouble with The Flash is it starts to gather up characters and themes along the way, but none of it makes sense. Despite the vividness of its star, the movie steamrolls Ezra Miller's personality as it goes along. Why would the movie try and steamroll Ezra and cover him up with other characters? I just can't work it out. No, this review sees the movie as if it's carried by Ezra, because for a while, Ezra brings it, but in the end, they deserved better, meaning Ezra, and so do we. When the movie had Ezra in it with his sculpted dark eyebrows and his mesmerizing order of a peanut butter sandwich, the movie was great. But when it moved past that, when it started to bring Supergirl in...
I guess that's your cue, Supergirl. Pants!
No, not that one. And Batman, he took a back seat. And we can't have that. You're just distracting from his sculpted eyebrows. Don't you understand why I'm here to see this movie in the first place? Maybe we're beginning to understand that special Hollywood treatment after all. Because if you look at the reviews as a whole, that's definitely one of the main themes for the people that like it. There are some that like the movie because it includes the other characters. Those that like it because of Ezra Miller's comedy. His physical humor. Now, American comedy isn't normally my thing anyway, but I have a feeling that Ezra Miller's comedy would be far more on Taika Waititi's end of the spectrum.
It's hugely imaginative.
Taika, he's like a big kid.
Giant goats! Scream quite a lot.
Which is about as antithetical to what I find funny as is physically possible.
Kids, get the popcorn out.
Or they like that it was peppered with fan service cameos. It's worth noting as well that this is a 3.5 but still considered fresh. And it says peppered with fan service cameos, this amusing DC franchise crossover arrived several years too late to make an impact. Doesn't sound very fresh to me. Because what is 3.5? Well, it's average, isn't it? It exists, it wasted some time of my life, and I didn't really like it or hate it. And it's an understandable reaction when the movie seems to be in two parts. You've got the Ezra Miller first half, and then you've got the cameo-fulfilled second half. And nobody seems to like both, which is what would be required to give it high marks. So you've got the really obsessed Ezra Miller fans, and you've got the people who just want to see it because Batman. And it's almost like they did it that way deliberately. We're going to ignore Ezra Miller in the marketing, and if not showing him gets you into the cinema, well, we can't get rid of him from the movie completely, but we can make sure that the second half, the last thing you see, minimizes him as much as possible. Which might explain why the score is just so meh. It's a balance where no one really has strong feelings either way because they tried to please everybody and came out with a movie that's just to everybody. If that's the best thing that you can do in entertainment nowadays, if making one of the greatest superhero movies ever, according to James Gunn, is just most people won't find it offensive, then it really doesn't give high promise for DC's future. Because of all the things to like, you've got Ezra Miller, you've got Batman and Supergirl, or you've just got random cameos. None of those things are what actually make a film entertaining. Just going, oh look, that's a guy that I've seen in this other thing over there, doesn't make it entertaining. And very few of these reviews are like, oh, what I really loved was the plot. It was the plot that got me. No, I mean, it's a real adrenaline shot where you have zooming, bantering, and mourning, but it doesn't mention the plot. The twists, the turns, you'll never see this coming. No, this is the last remnants of a near-defunct DCU, which once again reveals a desperation to catch up to what has come before, and relying on a nostalgia museum instead of earning the big wow and emotional beats it so craves. Stick a fork in it, mate. I think it's done. Because apparently, the nostalgia will leave fans satisfied. For about 5 minutes anyway, and then when they come back to later think on the movie, that doesn't work in the long time. A good script is timeless, but making somebody go, oh, I recognize that. They tend to like it when they're there, maybe when they immediately walk out. Doesn't tend to last. You know, what they will remember, though, are things like a poor lead or disastrous special effects. And this can lead to depressing marquee cameos for the simple fact that if somebody brings a character that you love into a movie that you despise, you're like, oh, you really deserved better, mate. And pitying one of the actors when you're watching something that's supposed to entertain you isn't exactly the lasting impression that most movies want to make. Something which seems to be echoed all over the place when we get the director's efforts only seem to function as a conduit for the many cameos stuffed into this movie. Because yes, you may get some people who are huge fans of Ezra Miller, but a lot of people just want to be distracted from the fact that he's in it in the first place. And honestly, I can see why. because despite being repeatedly told that they've already got a Flash 2 script ready-made and on ice, just in case this is a huge success, and the director is coming out and going, I don't think there's anyone that could play the character as well as they did, talking about Ezra Miller and the potential sequel. If it comes to that, the only question I think James Gunn should have on his mind is just how much money do you want to lose? Because in a time where Henry Cavill's Superman is one of the few cameos you won't actually get in this movie, the answer seems to be all of it. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.